Hi, I'm John Kronog. I'm the co-chair of the Montclair Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs Advisory Committee.
And my name is Aaliyah Agostini Livingstone, and I'm co-chair of the Montclair Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs Advisory Committee. We provide advice to our township employees responsible for the parks of the town, as well as the recreation and cultural affairs events of the towns. So our board interacts directly with the town council and some of the township's permanent staff in a number of different ways. We have a counselor who is our designated liaison who works with us to help advocate for some of the recommendations that our group provides. And we also have both the Director of Community Services and the Director of Recreation and Cultural Affairs who attend our meetings and who speak to us directly about some of our recommendations as well. They've all been instrumental in helping implement some of our recommendations and making sure that the township's voices are heard.
One of the ongoing roles of the advisory committee is to help determine where funds are allocated that are dedicated to parks and recreation, so multiple projects that are coming up in the town over time. Some of them are capital, some of them are operational. So we work with those department heads on trying to advise what's appropriate or what's most needed. But what we've seen in the last year with the growth in population in Montclair, particularly folks living now in apartment buildings versus houses, and because of COVID, the tremendous burst in use of the parks. And so they're straining a bit, and unfortunately in Montclair we just don't have room to build more parks. So trying to find ways to maximize the use of the parks while maintaining them and kind of keeping them in their pristine state.
It's honestly hard to pick just one. Our board does a lot behind the scenes, and we're made up of a number of individuals who kind of represent user groups and parks throughout towns, as well as some of the recreation and cultural affairs related groups that are within the towns too. And with respect to recreation, I mean like hockey, because John is very active in hockey, and we have another member who's very active in Make Music Day and some of the other things that are more cultural affairs related but use our town's facilities. But what we've actually managed to do is kind of identify areas in a number of our parks where there is investment that's needed. I think, for instance, Tourist Park is one park that was overlooked for a long time, and because of, in fact, it was the insights of a 9-year-old who came to one of our members and said, this could be a really great park. What can we do about it? And it took a number of years, but we were ultimately able to help persuade the town with the help of our council liaison to get the investment we needed to make a really beautiful park. And that's just one instance of places where we've had that advocacy, but it's something that I think we're tremendously proud of, and you can actually see the results of our efforts all over town.
And as Aaliyah said, many of the members of our committee are active members, key people in the various Friends of the Parks conservancies or groups around town. So they're really in touch with the day-to-day use of the parks. And another event that we had was the townwide Parks cleanup this year, which had tremendous participation all around town, and people got very excited about. So it goes back to the membership of the committees, primarily being, or not primarily, but many being representatives of the various parks advocacy groups, and gathering input from them, as well as just folks who come in and contribute to the discussion at any point in time. We're an open group. We collect input from everybody, having conversations with folks around town, conversations with folks in use of the parks and the recreational facilities, and then also input from, again, the head of the Department of Community Services and the Parks and Recreation group of town.
Honestly, we could do a better job of that. And one thing that we realized that earlier this year. So we have done a couple of events, one of which that John mentioned. Well, we've done 2 of them at this point. Our townwide Parks Appreciation Day. It was really a day to get Montclair Montclair residents involved and out into their respective parks. And each of the parks that we led cleanups in were pretty much helmed by one of our committee members. So it was an opportunity for them to get to see us, to even know that this committee exists, because that's an issue. So many people don't know that it exists. And to see how they could get actively involved in the parks. So one thing that we just definitely want to make sure that we do ongoing is to continue to do these events, and then also to potentially publicize a little bit more about what we do to really foster more community engagement, whether it's people letting us know what their interests are or potentially joining us.
So I got involved with this committee probably 20 plus years ago when my kids were small, and we lived near Edgemont Park, and the state of Edgemont Park at the time was not in good shape. You know, the playground was non-existent. It was overrun by geese at the time. There was a project going on in town that somebody had started to look at maximizing all of the green space to try and convert to athletic facilities, which raised a lot of concerns all across town. So a lot of concerned neighbors around Edgemont formed the Friends of Edgemont Park, which I was a part of, and there was a need for representation at this committee, and so I came on board the committee here, and I've been here since then. And it's been fun. We've got a lot done, I think, that over the years, and I think there's a lot more to do.
For sure. And honestly, my story is somewhat similar. I live very close to Porter Park, and it's definitely one of the town's smaller parks, but it's a lot larger than people realize. It essentially has a lot of beautiful green space, benches, and paths, and garbage cans, of course. But they were in disrepair when we first moved in, and as I spoke to my neighbors, it was clear that there was an interest in making this park a little bit more user-friendly. I mean, my children are still young, and at that time I was like, this could be a wonderful park where they could ride their scooters, but these paths are terrible, and they can't do that right now. I happened to speak to Janet Shapiro, who's been on the board for a long time, and she mentioned that becoming involved in the PRCA is a great way to help advocate for the parks in your community. And I had no idea what it was at that time, and I'm so glad I was introduced to her. So my initial interest was in helping improve my local park, but I think by working along with John and a number of the other members of our committee, it was clear, how much of an impact parks have on Montclair and how much there is to be done. And I really became I really love this committee. I love all the people on it, and it's really been an awesome way to get involved in our local community as Montclairians. So I definitely encourage people to get involved. It's really fulfilling. As John said, it's, you can make it as much of a commitment or as small of a commitment, although we'd wanted to make a larger commitment. But please join us.